So I've kind of pulled through some of the cables. As you can see, it kind of just looks like a hot mess right now with all the cables just kind of hanging out. And before, these connections and stuff were all within inside the headlight. So I'm actually going to be putting in a new headlight that I got, just kind of a cheapie that has the turn signals and stuff built in to have a really simple look to it. So I'm going to be connecting all that stuff next and trying to get at least the headlight assembly done. But I still need to run the electrical down the side of the frame and get my little hidden metal box that'll be going underneath the seat. That'll be also in this video. So this is going to be all the electrical stuff. I went ahead and also just kind of remounted up some of the other electrical connections here on the side, put in the new little black horn, just stuff that initially here was kind of simple to do, some low-hanging fruit. You know, I've got the other boxes here on the side. Repainted some of this stuff. All new hardware is one thing that I've done a lot of too. Replaced the hardware here. Just went to a hardware store, basically just took all the little pieces of hardware that I had with me and then found the right sizes to replace everything here. You know, all of this stuff, all brand new hardware. Actually, when I did the gauges, what it is, I just completely took them apart, taped off the glass parts here, painted it with the same paint that I used on the frame, and then obviously these chrome caps come off and they had a little rust on them, they were a little tarnished. So I took those apart, just polished them up with some Mother's wheel polish, and now they look like brand new, like $1,000,000. So the gauges are coming together. Handlebar setup's pretty cool, but this next part is pretty much going to be all electrical. This is my eBay special headlight kit that I got, and it came with this 7-inch headlight. Obviously it's a cheapie. This is all plastic. The headlight comes right apart. Got the main assembly here with the ear mounts on the sides, and then it came with these metal, again cheapie, fork ears that go around the forks, which actually look pretty cool when they're in place. They'll go right here in place. But one thing I noticed about them is that the way that this is assembled here is this little bracket. Well, it's not exactly, it doesn't exactly fit flush. One of the weird things about it is it's bent and doesn't create a good seal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually unscrew this. I can actually just do it with one finger. Drop the camera. Pull this apart. See how these fit together. I'm sure many people have looked into this this eBay option, and again, these are super cheap. I'll probably end up replacing this with something better down the road, but for now this is fine. It'll work, and then maybe get something cooler later, but you know, going that cheap route is always fun. So what they did here is they put the hole for the screw here below, kind of below these other ear holes, which is interesting. And you have these little slots that the clamp sits in, but the clamp, first of all, doesn't sit flush at all. Doesn't sit level, and then when it wants to sit naturally, it points to here as opposed to where they have it showing the hole is here. And then when you pull it to this spot, look at how bent that is. That's terrible. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to sit this here, put a little mark there, and then drill the hole. That way my screw can go straight through, and then at least the clamp, when it's this way, is a little bit more round. So I'm going to go ahead and drill that out on both of those, and then I'm going to see how these ears fit on in place over the forks themselves. So this is what it looks like with the new fork ears installed, and that's right where I drilled that new hole. There was the hole that came stock on the ears themselves. So now you can see that the bracket actually sits much more flush right here and squeezes nicely around the shock in an even place, as opposed to way down here where it would have been bent crooked and not aligned. So I put those together, just put a little rubber grommet in there for a little bit of cushion, and then put the new beautiful cheap plastic headlight bezel in, which I'll probably be replacing with something metal down the road. I've pulled all the front wire harness stuff through, so the next thing will be to connect the front wires all the way down to the side. with the new wire harness, or excuse me, not the new wire harness, but the main wire harness. And this is it. And I've actually cleaned it up with a little bit of degreaser, just tried to clean it up as much as I can, and also retaped a lot of it. Just ran some electrical tape on some exposed areas and some loose areas. So the next thing will be to run the wire harness down the frame. So what I'm doing now is actually just trying to make sure I have all of the wires set in place that are running underneath the tank, and that'll go into my little electronics pan that I'm going to be putting in right here underneath the seat. So what I've done is I put in the main wire harness, and I've just set the tank on for right now, and I'll go ahead and lift it up. So you can see the main harness coming through. I have the cables for the throttle and the choke setting on top of the motor for now. But the main cable, the wire harness is coming through, and actually it's supposed to come through this area here, and there's actually this little cutoff here in the frame so that these main wires kind of hang there. Now before, underneath the side cover, there was this hole mount where all the electronics hung in place right here. So that's now gone, and obviously I've cut off the brackets that held that on. So all of these electronics are going to sit inside of the little pan, the tray that I'm going to be mounting underneath the seat right here. I've also done a similar thing on the other side, and on the other side I've got just the one cable coming through right here. That is used for the starter coils and this main connector here, the switch. Again, this will all be sitting in the pan underneath. Got a few wires here. I'm going to have to see if these are long enough to actually connect into the pan. They should work. They're going to be kind of sitting here weird though, so I may have to try to extend these wires just to kind of see how things fall together. But basically I'm just trying to work on the wiring placement. I've also taken the seat and just try to see how the seat fits into place, and it sits right there. So these wires will be coming kind of underneath the seat, and again that pan's going to be right there. So I've got plenty of slack in these wires, including the ones coming out of the motor too for all the connections. I think I should be in pretty good shape. So I'm going to keep working on making sure everything's lined up, throw some zip ties on some things, and get everything tightened down. And then I'm gonna once the new pan shows up, I'm gonna put the pan in, and then show you guys how I install all these electronics in that pan. To do that, I researched the hell out of trying to find a solution on how to hide this stuff. And what I ended up finding was this really cool box, this fabricated box from Cognito Moto, based in Pennsylvania. Actually had one box sent out and it was too small, so I ordered this bigger one. It's actually for a CB 550, but what happens is this just sets right in there, and I'm going to put all the electronic pieces into that box. So what I'm actually going to do is this actually fits pretty snug into place. If I pop it underneath these two rubber grommets here, let's see if I can get that in one-handed. Boom. So I've already tested this by putting the seat on there. The seat fits right across the top and underneath the tank there where the mount's supposed to be. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be drilling a hole through the top of this, and underneath there's actually a small little mount. You can see here, little hole, stock hole, and I'm going to be putting a bolt through the bottom there, coming up through the top, and then securing it up top here, and then being able to run the electronics through this little cutout here and this little cutout here, and then all of the components will fit inside there. So I got to drill that out, and then also figure out a way how to clamp around this main frame pipe here into this hole. But it should be easy. This is actually pretty sturdy, just sitting in there. The whole bike actually shakes, so I'm not worried about it falling out or anything like that. It's not going to go down. It's setting in the frame. A lot of guys will probably weld this in place. I don't have a welder, so I'm not going to be able to do that. But with the bolt that's going to go through here, and then 2 clamps of some kind that I need to figure out around here, I should be in good shape. So the next step is to drill through, paint up the box, get it set in place, and then start putting the electronics in. And what I'm probably going to do is either Velcro or somehow get all the electronics to sit in here so they're not rattling around and bumping against each other, obviously, is very important. Okay, working on getting the electronics to fit in the pan, and I got my electrical specialist Leif helping me out, and with me as always is Rich.
Ah.
Yeah, and we're working together to get all the electrical figured out. So right now we're just getting everything set in the pan. I painted the pan, but we're trying to get everything to fit in there, and we're working on resetting up some of the wires, trying to shorten some of them up to get them all to fit into place. It looks like everything's going to work. Just got to do a little finagling to get it all to stuff into this pan and route the way we want it to. So that's kind of what we're working on now, and I'll give a little bit of update once we have everything fit in there and explain how we did it. But that's Leif's. I'm looking at a diagram face.
Plug this one into my ear!
Yeah. Okay, so mission complete. Got all of the electronics fit into the new underseat box. Was able to get everything pretty much smushed in there. It's a tight fit for all of the electronics, but it does work, and everything tested out and works fine. One of the tricks that we did was, you can see here, this is a old stock connector. This is actually the only one that we left. We replaced most of the stock connectors, those big plastic bulky connectors, with these slimmer, smaller male-female individual connectors. And the reason we did that is because this allowed us to create more space to allow the seat and everything to kind of stuff inside of the electronics box. But what we did is we got the battery in there, and what I did on the other side of the battery is I put Velcro on the top and the bottom, so the battery is actually Velcroed in place. I've got the capacitor right here. The fuse panel, it's hard to see, but it's actually right down inside there. And I actually put two little bolts in right there and there to hold the fuse panel and the capacitor in place. I've got the flasher in here, but this is actually still the stock flasher. I just ordered the replacement LED flasher, so that'll actually drop in there, fit in there nice and tight. And then we've got some more of the wires that kind of come in, wrap out. It kind of looks like a little bit of a spaghetti mess, but obviously no worse than it did on the stock bike. For the power, the negative, I actually just routed that here to the back of the frame, scraped off some of the paint there, and bolted that down. So the battery and everything's all wired up. Dropped my new bolt in here to hold the pan in place. One cool thing that I did too is I actually went and got a couple more of these clamps that I had used in the front for the wires here. I got the same clamps to go around the frame, bolt through the holes that came on the pan here on the box, and now it's completely mounted in place. Did one on each side, so no welding needed, none at all. This pan is just kind of sitting in here nice and snug with a bolt there, and then the two clamps on each side there. One of the things that we did was we tried to shorten up the cable a little bit. So we did like a little bend here that goes underneath the tank for the cable. Held that down with a zip tie and another zip tie on this side. Originally this cable went down and routed down here, and then we brought it across this way so it could come into the pan. So it's basically just rerouting a lot of things. So we've already checked it. The tank fits on nice and snug. The seat slides on fine. Oh, and actually these are the taillight connectors for the seat itself. So that slides on. Everything fits in there nice and clean. Once it's all on, you can barely see it. Oh, and also what we did is we mounted the rectifier here to the bottom of the pan. Not the ideal. I would have loved to have it a little more hidden, but we only had so much wire that was available to us, so we just mounted that on the bottom. And again, that had to be in an open air space because these fins actually cool off the rectifier. So one of the things I need to do now is I actually have some wire here that's left from a few different sensors, and then also on the other side coming from the alternator. So I was unable to actually get all these to run all the way up into the pan, so what I'm thinking about doing is actually putting a little box, mounting a little box here on the back of the main post. And I went and I picked up this little gray, it's almost like a pencil box. And what I'm thinking of doing is cutting down the middle so it fits over the spine, and then mounting that there, and then running all of these wires basically inside of this cage there. It'll kind of be open air, painting this black, I think it'll kind of look cool. I'm going to experiment with this, but I may end up going with something else in the future. But basically what I'll do is I'll cut in there for the spine, for it to fit around the spine, and then actually use these stock holes here from the original side mounts to create a strap, or maybe using some more of these clamps to actually hold this box in place also. So that'll be interesting, but I don't want these wires just like kind of hanging out here. And these are unplugged right now. I've got to plug them back in. But I don't want those wires just kind of hanging in that spot. I want to clean it up a little bit. So this box might be kind of cool if I can figure out a way to get it mounted again without welding. Nothing I've done on this project has been welded. So electrical, pretty much done. Oh, I also was able to get the headlight all mounted and situated in place, and which was really cool because there's, again, those connectors were so bulky, and inside of the stock headlight housing was so much bigger, so they had more space. So with this one, I was hoping it would be able to smush it all in there, and I was able to do that. But as you can see, the light works, and the turn signals will also kind of work. They come on. Again, they're inside of the headlight. They come on at least, but they don't flash because I need the new flasher. But the headlight does work, so I have power, and it all fit in. So it's looking pretty clean behind the headlight, which I'm really stoked about that I was able to get all that to fit. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, otherwise the electrical is pretty much done. I'll have one more part of this, including how I get this box on the back here and clean up the last little bit of these wires. But otherwise, electrical is working, and the bike will run as soon as I get the carbs on. Okay, so the electrical is done on the bike. Everything turned out pretty good. Got my headlight working with the integrated turn signals, and I got my LED flasher in there now, so everything is working properly, getting the proper tick on both the front and the rear, which I'm pretty excited about. Turned out really good. And then, last but not least, I was able to go to the hardware store and I picked up this small metal box, this graded metal box, and I was able to run the extra wires that I had coming out of the crankcase and the alternator up through there, up to the seat. So it's still a little messy with these wires here, but what I anticipate is that the pod filters on the end of the carburetor will actually come out here and just slightly cover that to clean up that look a little bit. I may get some additional tubing to go around the wires here just to finish cleaning it up, but otherwise the electrical is all done.